What happens when a beloved healer's legacy collides with decades of policy pain? I'm Ethan. Maya grounds the grief and calls for accountability. Leo brings forensic rigor and skepticism. We'll trace praise, fault lines, and the high-stakes choices now shaping the church's future. Tonight, we trace two stories at once: the official tribute to President Russell M. Nelson and the public debate over his policies, power, and legacy. Both are true, and both are incomplete without the other.
Because grief and praise do not erase hard questions, the videos call him healer, prophet, father. Many members felt that. Others felt hurt by policies on LGBTQ+ lives or how abuse reports were handled.
And yet, listen to those who knew him. In one tribute, an apostle said he was the gentlest and sweetest person you could ever hope to associate with. That kindness mattered to millions.
Facts first. Russell Marion Nelson was born in Salt Lake City on September 9, 1924. A pioneering heart surgeon, he helped develop the heart-lung machine and did Utah's first open-heart operation in 1955. He completed nearly 7,000 surgeries, taught and led in medicine, then in 1984 left the operating room to join the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. He became the church's 17th president in 2018. He died peacefully at home in Salt Lake City late on Saturday, September 27, 2025. At 101, he was the oldest person to lead the faith.
His life really did braid medicine, ministry, and family. One tribute remembered, he tried to bless the lives of others spiritually and physically. That is not spin, that is the record.
Family was central. He married Dancel White in 1945, raised 10 children, later married Wendy Watson after Dancel's death. His daughter recalled, "You only have one daddy." That intimacy shaped his public message too.
He even learned enough Chinese to give instructions in an operating room during heart surgery abroad. That restless curiosity later fueled a whirlwind ministry around the world.
As an apostle and later prophet, he pushed a more global church, visits to scores of countries, attention to local culture, non-American leaders in key posts, even regional hymn books and language access.
And reforms at home. Early in his presidency, he said, "Jesus Christ directed us to call the church by his name." Then he trimmed the Sunday schedule from 3 hours to 2 and urged home-centered learning.
Brand and substance together. A focus on the name, a 2-hour block, "Come Follow Me at Home." It made the faith portable for a global flock, but it also centralized messaging at the headquarters level.
He ended a century with the Boy Scouts, launched a new youth program, and prioritized temple access, announcing about 200 new temples to bring worship closer to members worldwide.
Remember his Rome moment, dedicating the temple with the full First Presidency and 12 by his side, and the first ever meeting between a Latter-day Saint president and Pope Francis. Bridge building in action.
He also stood with the NAACP and spoke against racism after George Floyd's murder. Important steps, yes, but many urged deeper systemic work inside and outside the church on race.
During the pandemic, he urged vaccination and remote worship. That ask came from a physician prophet, calm, practical, faithful. It helped many congregations find a path through chaos.
Now, the controversies. In 2019, he rescinded a 2015 policy that had labeled same-sex couples apostates and restricted their children's baptism, a notable course correction.
Even so, the church retained its doctrine that marriage is between a man and a woman and issued rules limiting participation by those pursuing gender-affirming care or social transition. Critics warned of harm to trans members.
Leaders framed it as balancing the love of the Lord and the law of the Lord. You can disagree, but that is an honest statement of how they see the tension, not a hidden agenda.
Abuse reporting practices also drew scrutiny. An investigation said a church hotline could be used by local leaders to channel allegations to attorneys rather than police. The church defended the hotline as child protective.
And later guidance changed. Leaders are told never to disregard a report, and children may bring an adult to one-on-one interviews. That is real policy movement, yet trust depends on transparency and follow-through.
Media often assumes malice. Sometimes it is muddle. A hotline can prevent witch hunts and protect victims. The fix is clarity. Report to authorities, then provide pastoral care. Both can happen.
Quick recap to pivot. We have a surgeon prophet who globalized worship, streamlined practices, built temples, and faced storms over LGBTQ+ policy and abuse protocols. Now, the succession question.
Here, the process is steady. It is not based on campaigning, popularity, or elections, one explainer said. Seniority, by ordination date, guides, and the quorum of the 12 leads immediately after a prophet dies.
When the prophet dies, the first presidency dissolves, counselors return to the 12, and the senior apostle presides. By custom, after a period of mourning, the 12 meet in the temple to decide on reorganizing the presidency.
They can either keep the 12 presiding for a time or reorganize. In almost every case, the senior apostle becomes president, then selects 2 counselors. Those counselors are often apostles, but do not have to be.
So, there is no power vacuum. A solemn assembly later lets members sustain the new prophet, orderly, reverent, and, Latter-day Saints would say, guided by Jesus Christ.
By seniority, Dallin H. Oakes is expected to assume the presidency after funeral rites. A former judge and university president, known for lectern-style sermons and emphasis on religious freedom and marriage doctrine.
That emphasis matters. If President Oakes continues the same doctrinal priorities, LGBTQ+ policies may stay firm. The open question is pastoral tone and implementation, how to reduce harm while keeping conviction.
Tone was a Nelson hallmark. He often said, "Hateful words are deadly weapons," and urged people to think celestial. Civility is not fluff. It shapes how hard truths land in hearts.
Personal notes added texture. Grandkids remembered lawnmower rides and him standing with a 5th grader at a school assembly. Colleagues called him modest, steady, endlessly energetic. Those memories are data too.
And yet, tender tributes must live alongside lived pain. For queer and trans members told not now or not here, policy lines can feel like locked doors. The church framed love and law, they felt the weight of law.
Sometimes prophetic leadership says hard things kindly. That is the job. He once promised, "I reaffirm that promise to give all I have to building the kingdom of God." He meant it, even when it was unpopular.
Promises invite accountability. If love and law both matter, are leaders measuring outcomes, suicide risk, family alienation, exit rates, alongside orthodoxy? Stewardship includes the data of human lives.
And stewardship includes spiritual claims. One blessing he voiced was, "I bless you that you'll have safety." For believers, those words are not PR. They are pastoral care with power.
On global reach, travel numbers differ by time frame. One tally says he visited 134 countries as an apostle. Another notes about 32 as president. Both can be true based on the roll window. Even family counts vary across reports. Some list 57 grandchildren and more than 167 great-grandchildren. Another says more than 200 combined descendants. That is a bookkeeping gap, not a scandal.
The deeper accounting is institutional. The abuse hotline, was it ever used to stall or shield? The church has since clarified guidance, but members will want audits, training, and guarantees of immediate law enforcement contact.
Build the belt and the suspenders. Require reporting, keep victim support, and keep counsel for complex cases. A hotline can be both shield and sword when used right.
Bridges beyond doctrine. He partnered with the NAACP, received a Peace Award from Morehouse College in 2023, and kept interfaith ties. Those choices widened the conversation the church had with the world.
And he marked milestones. He turned 100 in 2024, the first prophet to do so, and dedicated the 200th temple, the Deseret Peak Temple, that November. Momentum to the very end.
Momentum is not the same as consent. Global expansion also means global listening, space for regional voices, cultural nuance, and women's leadership influence. He began that. It still needs depth.
He invited that higher way. One tribute opened, Children of the Promised Day. The invitation is aspiration, not triumphalism. The work is to live up to it, including on the tough issues Maya names.
Then name those issues clearly. Gender policy clarity, abuse protocol enforcement, race equity beyond statements. If President Oakes keeps the doctrinal spine, pastoral muscles must flex harder.
As we weigh legacy, remember his own language about public discourse. The present hostility in public dialogue is alarming. Hateful words are deadly weapons. That is a standard to hold ourselves to here.
Fair point. And fairness means crediting the good. Home-centered learning stabilized faith at home. The shorter block helped families. Temples brought sacred rites closer to underserved regions.
And fairness means seeing who still feels outside the circle. The reversal on the 2015 policy mattered, so would clearer pathways for trans members to worship without fear of discipline for identity.
Doctrine and dignity can coexist. The Church's phrasing, love and law, implies that both must show up in policy details, not only from pulpits. That is a worthy test for the next administration.
On timing, funeral details are forthcoming. Traditionally, the first presidency is reorganized after the funeral, with counselor selections and any new apostle called thereafter. Expect a solemn assembly in due course.
I will watch who is called as counselors. The choice signals priorities: administrative continuity versus pastoral outreach, global experience versus legal or academic background.
There is room for both. Counselors have sometimes come from beyond the 12, though lately they are usually apostles. Either way, authority is delegated to govern with the prophet. No confusion there.
We should also note the civic reflections. Senator Mike Lee praised Nelson's humility and quiet confidence. Virtues colleagues echoed. Admiration across political lines is rare. It says something about his public posture.
Posture is not the whole body. If the church wants trust after hotline scrutiny, publish training stats, audit compliance, and make reporting routes obvious to every parent and teen, that would honor survivors now.
Agree on transparency. Also, remember the thousands of quiet visits he made. One story had him standing beside a fifth grader at assembly, time given without cameras. That is leadership from the living room, not the lectern.
Small acts model big systems. If President Oaks wants continuity, keep the listening posture and add measurable protections. That is how love and law meet in practice, not just principle.
And keep building bridges. Rome, the Vatican visit, interfaith work, Morehouse recognition. Those are doors that stay open only if you keep walking through them with respect.
Before we close, one last thread. He often ministered at a sprint. Announcing temple after temple felt like a race against time. In that urgency is a message. He saw a global flock, not an American one.
Then resource the flock accordingly, translate, decentralize, elevate non-American leadership, adapt music and curricula regionally. He began that push. The follow-through will define the next chapter.
And keep the center firm. Faith communities survive change by remembering why they exist. He reminded members often, it is about Jesus Christ. That North Star steadied the reforms.
Final recap. Surgeon, prophet, reformer. A global builder who sought to blend love and law, and whose tenure sparked devotion and debate. The next president inherits both the blueprint and the unfinished rooms.
Including rooms labeled justice, safety, and belonging. The test is whether people who felt outside can find a seat without surrendering their dignity.
And whether conviction can remain clear without cruelty. It can. That is the work of leadership and discipleship.
In the weeks ahead, watch the counselors President Oaks chooses, the updated guidance on abuse reporting, and any pastoral notes on LGBTQ+ participation. We will be here to track what changes and what endures.